Hi, welcome to the small shed. Today we're going through my tool bag. See you in a minute. Now I wouldn't normally do requests, they usually involve the word off, but in this case I had an Instagram query the other day from Josh at Widdy Workshop, who asked what I carried in my tool bag, and the simple truth is I don't really know. What happens is over a period of time it's evolved into a set of things that I take with me when I go out, and they seem to be able to do most of the jobs that I get involved in if I'm doing anything out and about. So it had been out doing that loft hatch about 3 or 4 weeks ago and has come back full of rubbish. It hasn't been cleaned out and tidied up for a long while, so I suspect it'll contain 4 or 5 of a lot of things that I don't really need it to. So let's just have a look what's in there at the moment. Start off with a set of drills, cheap nasty set that were next to nothing, but I've got most sizes there. I must again go through and do a quick check on what's missing and top them up. There's a couple of twist drills missing, a couple of brad points missing, some spade bits there, a hole saw that is quite useful. Again, they're not high quality. I've got a set of Bosch circular hole saws, but just every now and again if you're out and about, that's a useful thing to have. And there's a few spare bits. So apart from just putting some more drills into there, that's always with me. Pair of scissors, square. I've got a couple of these. That one was bought I think at somewhere like B&Q. There's another one in there, and that's what I'm talking about with the duplication. I bought this one at shop down in by Western Supermare, that's called Proper Job, that has all sorts of incredible things for next to nothing. In this instance though, the next to nothing was worth nothing. This is an Amtech square. It's not half as nice as that aluminium one, that Empire one. It's accurate, but it's just a bit rough. So I may well junk that, but that's the one that I have with me most of the time, so I'm going to put that to one side. Sanding block with a bit of sandpaper on it, again, seem to have accumulated a couple, so we'll chuck one of those out. Gloves, you can never have too many of. I'll always have too many gloves in there, but again, I will always carry gloves with me, so having the gloves there is good. And a couple of hammers, got a rubber soft faced and a normal hammer, and again I appear to have duplicated. That's a bit heavier duty one, I wouldn't normally have that with me, so that one is one that needs a bit of work on it. Chuck that one away at the moment and find somewhere else for it. See if I can spread this out a bit bigger. So that is very useful. That is combined level digital angle finder. Always useful to have. Small size. I used to carry a short spirit level before. That I find is more useful, being able to set the angles. That pops in okay. Pair of pliers that are adjustable for grip. Tend to use those a lot, both for undoing nuts and things and pulling stuff out. There's an electric screwdriver in here which hasn't got any charge in it, which I might have guessed. One of the problems with carrying something like that you don't use very often is that it's always going to have a flat battery. It's an old DeWalt that I've seldom used, and has ended up in there by default rather than anything else. So I think I'm going to leave that out, because you've got to permanently either have a set of batteries on charge for it, and I've only got the one battery anyway, or not use it. And after all, I've normally got a set of drill drivers with me in a separate bag anyway, I think I'm going to kick that one out. There's a hand sander. I've just got a little Black & Decker mouse sander that's with me all the while, just for finishing off bits and pieces of timber. Duct tape, always good. Loose sandpaper, always useful. Even old tired stuff like that, always useful. Again, you can see a theme here coming through. Another little hand screwdriver that I never use. So I'm going to take that one out. It's got a little charger that probably is in the bag. We'll probably get down to that. Chisel. This is not a chisel for chiseling with. It's for opening paint tins and attacking things with. It doesn't really do any. It's not sharp. There's nothing there on it. But it is useful for just bashing the odd bit of timber out of the way. That's where that went. Sometimes you end up finding all the things that you've lost. 3/8 UNC tap. I think I wanted that because it's the size of a camera mount. It's an odd size that cameras you tend to use, so I'll put that away somewhere else. I wondered where that had gone. That is one of the most useful things you'll ever have. One of these profile finders that will enable you to do cutouts for round pipes or in laminate flooring, anything like that. This one's getting a little bit poorly now, but they really are quite a useful thing to have, and I've generally got that with me. Tape measure, of course, that goes without saying. Perhaps the most useful and widely used tool of all is the Irwin fold-up Japanese pull saw that I've got. That is my go-to saw for anything nowadays. I've got another one which is on the wall in the shed that I always use, so I have duplicated that tool. Normally got a protective sheet on it, but I don't know whether that's got lost or whether I'll find that in a minute. I've just bought another couple of normal pull saws for in the shed, but that is so useful to be able to get it to fold up that small. The old-fashioned pincers, again, one of the most useful things I've got for getting nails out, particularly if you're working with things like pallet wood or anything. You can just get a nail and roll it out with that, and it's got a claw on the end, screwdriver on the other end. They're just always useful. More gloves, more gloves, more gloves. I can bet that if I went through these I'd all be left hand, but never mind. More gloves. Spare sanding discs. Normal screwdriver. Long cross point screwdriver. These were actually used for kitchen units, but they're very good for getting into awkward corners. Stanley knife, and here's where you start to gather all the bits that have been thrown in there. Stanley knife, Stanley knife. Don't normally carry three. That's the one I normally have, the little fold-in one. That quite a nice little Stanley knife, that one. So I'll put those out the way to go in other places. In there, bit of old rag. Kitchen roll. I normally carry a decent kitchen roll with me. There's not much of that one left. Neoprene PVC gloves are useful as well. And again, more circular sanding disc. Second tape, I won't take that one out. Third tape, I won't take those out. You can never have enough tapes. I'll always run out of tapes. Another high quality chisel that won't do a lot, but might help you. Little fat wheel off a drill. Keep that one just for tidying stuff up. Random spanner. Paintbrush. Useful for just, very often you'll just have a little bit of painting to touch up or do. It's useful to have a paintbrush with me. Spare mask. Again, I normally have a decent mask, but I always carry one or two little disposable ones you never know when you're going to get a job that's a bit more dusty than you thought it would be. Polishing duster, stapler, tacker gun, useful for holding things, just nipping stuff down temporarily, or polythene, things like that, just tacking it up. Right angle square, the bag for the mouse sander that should be in. Large file, useful. Another tape. I think by now I'm getting to the point, that's where my measuring up podcast one went. I shall take that one back into the shed. That one's just one too far, I think, perhaps. That's one of the most useful things I've got with me. That's a T-bar with it's got a square on the end of it. That's basically for opening doors if you get locked in a room when there's no handle on, or the handle falls off or anything like that. But they are useful in all sorts of places if you've anything to do with hanging doors or anything, just to be able to put it in the latch and turn it. So again, it's light, it's not very big, it's always with me just in case. Appear to have a second stapler in there. That one's not so good, so that one can go out. Another little bevel, little adjustable bevel. That one's more useful in that you can actually lock it up and it won't get distorted. If you're doing something, it won't get moved while you're taking it out from wherever you're working and taking it to a piece of wood to cut. Random piece of wood, another spanner. I can only assume these are from something like routers or something, but I'll check those out. That's the anti-cut yourself bit off the end of the craft knife, Stanley knife. Another little file, little round one. A random router bit which shouldn't be in there, so we'll take that out and put it away. Cutting knives, disposable ones, use a lot of those, very useful for just opening packages and little bits of cutting. You can bend the blades quite a bit, so they've not got any great strength in them for cutting, but they are always useful to have. Big one and a small one. Obligatory screw fix or IKEA pencils, propelling pencil, another bag of screws from the last job, yet another tape. This is where they all end up. So we've now got 5 tapes out of the bag, more gloves, more bits of sandpaper, another small pair of scissors, little hand screwdriver, and a large marker pen type thing. Small nail punch, very useful for just popping nails back in before you fill them. There's the sanding pads and polishing pads for the mouse sander there in the end pack. A random router bit which needs to be a round over that needs to be put away, and that's about it. That's pretty much it, tidied up away now. A lot more room in there now. One thing I forgot to mention, because I thought it was a pen or a pencil, that is probably the most useful thing I've got in the bag. That's a telescopic magnet. It is great for getting those hard to get at bits that fall down behind radiators and things like that. I have got a clutch one somewhere, but that's not surfaced for a long while. Maybe when I sort the garage out I'll find that. But that's pretty much the bag sorted now. I will put that back, throw the rest of the rubbish away. It's all been cleaned out. A few lessons in that, I suppose, really. First and foremost, clean your bag out every now and again, because it's amazing what you'll find that you thought you'd lost. Secondly, probably just let the thing develop, because it depends entirely on what you're doing as to what you take with you, and therefore over a period of time it evolves. When I'm doing anything specific that I know what I'm doing, I will spend time sorting that job out and taking the appropriate tools, and I'm going to mention that in a week or two's time, just run through how I do that. The other thing is, don't spend a lot of money on anything like this. I have once or twice left it down at the back of the car and run over it and things like that, so it's not worth having expensive bags for things that are getting thrown around. They get worn, but it's just useful to have it all in one place so you can just get up and go out in a hurry. Hope it was of interest. It was a specific request on this one, so it's probably only going to appeal to one or two, but hope it was of interest particularly to Josh at Woody Workshop. Otherwise we'll get on and build something, I hope, next week, and I'll see you then. Bye.